You're listening to one of the 5 lessons given at our Freedom from Want conference at Shasta Reformed Church in Redding, California. We believe that the Word of God is living and active, and we pray that the Lord would use the proclamation of His Word to convict your heart and cause you to walk in greater obedience to King Jesus.
Moving on to lesson 3, and we're going to be talking about what's called source idols. Has anybody ever heard the term source idol before? No. Okay. It's a theological term that basically means everybody has a root idol. It's the idol that's at the very bottom, and it's the one that you're worshiping above every other idol. And every other sin problem that you do have, if we traced it down, we would end up at this. This is the real thing. This is what you're really worshiping, and this is what you're looking for. When we talk about root idols, as you see, there's like this kind of graph sheet on your booklet. We can sometimes, because the world has gotten so full of garbage psychology, you also got Enneagrams and some of those other like personality trait type stuff. And there's this obsession we have with being labeled. We actually love it. We love being labeled, and then we almost end up worshiping the label that we have, okay? So what I'm going to argue is that you probably have one source idol. Some of you have multiples. I've gone through this with marriages, like marriage counseling, like before getting married, and there have been many times where somebody's like, can I have all 4 of those? And I'm like, yeah, you for sure could, okay? So don't get so obsessed with this where you can be like, oh, this is my source idol and this is my problem. You can almost end up loving that, okay? So I'm already just trying to warn you, don't try to lump yourself into something and say, this is my box and this is who I am, and then start using that as your excuse for everything, because that will be a tendency, okay? To just say, well, this is my problem, this is what God has given me kind of thing, and I'm just having to deal with this. No. Why we're doing this is to identify a problem so that then hopefully we can mortify that sin, put it to death, kill it, okay? So, before we dive in, let me pray for us, and then we'll jump into this lesson. Father, we thank you so much for, again, this opportunity that you have sovereignly and providentially brought before us, where we get the opportunity to focus in on our marriages. Father, as we now look at this topic of source idols, we ask that you would be kind and gracious to expose our sin. We want to be, as you say in your word, laid naked and bare before you, whom we must give an account to. We want your light to shine so brightly that our dark spots become very clear and evident, so that we can identify them and begin to work by your grace to kill that area of sin. And so with this sin of idolatry, Father, help us, please, to be men and women who can identify our idols and smash them with the power of the gospel. We love you. Amen. If you go around the world and you look pretty much in any culture that's not a Western culture, you're going to deal with literal idol worship. It's everywhere. There's going to be legitimate little statues of something, and people will give sacrifices to it. They'll bow down to it. In Thailand, they love their idols. They're everywhere. In every house, every business, every government building, they have these like little, what they call spirit houses. They're either inside in the corner or they're outside at some corner spot of the property. And these little spirit houses, they look like little fancy bird houses. They're like just decorated with a bunch of flowers. They give sacrifices of fruit, and they think that the spirits like the color red. So they would literally, this is not a joke, this is how crazy your idol worship can get. They would give like red Fanta soda as a sacrifice to the spirits because they thought that the spirits liked red things. And before you start mocking that and saying that's ridiculous, you'd serve an idol like that, you will do crazy things to worship your idol. We will. What happens over there when an individual gets saved is often they will have an idol smashing party, and it's glorious. I mean, they literally take their idols and they either just start throwing them on the ground and smashing them, or they'll hit them with clubs and things like that. They'll have a spirit house knocking down party. Well, they'll pull the spirit house down and they'll go throw it in the middle of the jungle or something. And it's amazing. It's a really wonderful, tangible thing that they get to do, to say, here's this idol that I've been worshiping, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to smash it because I don't serve that anymore. My goal in this is for you to have an idol smashing party that you could be able to say, here's my idol and it's time to be done. It's done. I need to be done worshiping this and smash this. We have church distinctives. It's on our website. I forget how many we have. I think it's like 7. One of the distinctives of our church is that we are going to be people who, with the power of the gospel, smash idols. Smash the idols in our own hearts and smash the idols of the culture. We're not going to bow down to idols. We're not going to do it. So if the culture is bowing down to the idol of feminism, we're going to smash it. Done. We're not going to bow down to that. If we're living in a culture that celebrates homosexuality, we're smashing that idol with the power of the gospel. Not as prideful, arrogant people who want to go smash something just so that we can feel good about ourselves. No, we want to smash the idols because we want people to quit worshiping false gods and worship the one true living God. So that's my goal today, is that you would be able to identify your idol and then smash it. Okay? That's the goal. So open your Bibles to Exodus. Exodus chapter 20. And we're going to look at the first of the 10 commandments. Now, there's a reason why this is the first commandment, not, as God would say, as Christ would say, the greatest commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and strength. But this is first in the list. Martin Luther said every sin is idolatry. The reason it's first is because every sin at its root is worshiping something other than God. That's why yesterday we talked about being satisfied in God. That's worshiping God. Being satisfied in Him. You are going to God to satisfy the longings of your heart and of your soul. Why do we go to other things other than God? Because we wanted to satisfy the longings of our soul. What are we doing when we do that? We're worshiping that thing. Martin Luther says every sin is idolatry. Now look at Exodus chapter 20 and start at verse 1. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Did Egyptians have idol worship? Oh, yeah. Like more than most cultures. They were obsessed with their pantheon of gods and statues and all kinds of idol worship. They brought you out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. When you worship an idol, what are you in? Bondage. You're in slavery. The only time that you are not in slavery worshiping something is God. And even at that, what does Paul say? I'm a slave of Christ. You will become a slave of whatever you worship, even God. But when you're a slave of God, what you end up getting is God Himself, which is all satisfying. You worship something other than God, you become a slave of it, and you will be left unsatisfied. So being a slave of God and worshiping Him is glorious because you get Him. What do you get when you worship any other idol? You get what you worship. Right? You will receive whatever you worship. If you are wanting the sexual desire that you have fulfilled, when you go to pornography to satisfy that desire, what do you get? Pornography. And what does that how does that leave you feeling? Empty. Unsatisfied. You will get the thing you worship, and it will leave you feeling gross, empty, longing for something more. When you go to God and you worship Him, you actually get true, genuine satisfaction for your soul. So Jesus says, I'm the fountain of living water. He who comes to me will never thirst. He who believes in me will never hunger again. So that's the one thing that we should truly be worshiping. Okay, so he says this in verse 3. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them. Every single thing you worship, you're a slave to, and you serve it. You serve it. It makes demands, and you follow its demands. We'll just go back to the lust and pornography. You have a desire to satisfy your sexual urges, and what does pornography demand of you? Come and be satisfied. The only way you're going to be satisfied is when you come here and you partake in this. And what do? Yes, sir. Every single God that you worship demands your obedience, and you will serve it. It will demand sacrifice from you. That's why sacrifice is in every worship around the world. It demands something from you. You will sacrifice your wife in your sexual union with your wife to go have some fun with pornography. It demands that sacrifice of you. And then it says, you shall not bow down to them, serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. You should love that God is jealous. You should love it. You should love that he hates the fact that you will go to other gods, and he is jealous of that. That he hates that you do it, and he wants you. He wants you. He wants you to worship him. He's jealous for you. And that's not to put you in some category where he's like, you're so great, I want your worship. That's not it. He's jealous for you because he understands that he is the greatest, he is worthy of worship, and he loves you enough to say, you're going to be left empty. And so I want you to come worship me. Jealous God, please take note of this, especially you fathers, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me. I absolutely believe in what's called generational sins, but I don't believe in it like charismatics will believe in it. Like there's some sort of, do you need help, babe? Oh, okay. I believe in generational sins. I just don't believe in them as charismatics do. I dealt with a lot of charismatics in Thailand, and they believe that there's something like genetically or supernaturally over a family. Like if the father sins with drunkenness, that somehow biologically that next child is going to struggle with drunkenness. And so what we need to do is we need to pray the spirit of drunkenness out of this family. I don't believe in generational sins like that. But you have to believe in generational sins when you look at this passage. I will visit the iniquity of the father on the third and fourth generation. I will hold the father accountable for 3 or 4 generations. And I will visit the punishment, the wrath, the curse that he will have, and I'm going to visit that same curse on the coming generations. Now, God is just a gracious and merciful God, and he's about to say that. He will break that chain because he just loves you. He loves his glory. He loves to watch people worship him. I know many families who have had followers of Christ. Their kids don't turn out so good. And then the next generation, God tends to save. I don't know why he was gracious that way, because here he says that's not going to be the normal. That's not. The normal will be visiting the sin of the father upon the third and fourth generations. Okay? Now, look what he also says. But showing mercy to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. Now, what sin specifically is in view here when he says, I'm going to visit the iniquity, the sin of the father? What's the sin? What's the first 6 verses talking about? Idolatry. If you as a father in particular, because you're the head of the house, if you will allow your family to worship a God other than the God of the Bible, God will visit that sin on 3 or 4 generations. That's what he says here. He may be gracious, but you shouldn't bank on it. He probably will visit the iniquity. Okay? That doesn't necessarily mean your kids aren't going to be saved. Doesn't mean they're not covenant children anymore if they're raised in a Christian home. It doesn't mean that you can just bank on the fact that they're going wayward and are going to waste their life and abandon Christ. That's not what it's saying here. But if you worship a God, what does the rest of the family think about where the priorities are, about what dad thinks is worthy of worship? They think, that's the most pleasurable thing for our family to worship. That's what we should worship, whether it's sports, whether it's entertainment, whether it's, it could be fitness, it could be, sadly, we can turn good things. We can turn Christianity and the religion that is in Christianity, that's good religion, and we can turn that into the God we worship instead of, no, our religion is here because we worship the God of the Bible. Your kids could come out thinking, no, we worship attendance at church. That's what we worship. We will be there every Sunday. No, you should be there every Sunday. Don't neglect the gathering. But your kids could come out thinking that's what dad worships. He just worships discipline and coming to church on Sunday morning. Instead of, no, we come to church so that we can worship God. So the sin that he's bringing up here is idolatry. Idolatry. Now, again, I'm arguing that because this is one of the first ones that he does, and this is a big umbrella, he's saying don't worship any other thing. I'm arguing that at the root of every sin, you're worshiping something. You're worshiping something. So, here's what we're going to do. Okay? Take out your booklet here. And if you see under that title, Source Idols, you have Exodus chapter 20, 1 through 6. And then you see there in bold, hope has a direct impact on your joy. You might say, what in the world does that have to do with idolatry? Look down, it says, biblical hope is a confident expectation in God and his word. Therefore, placing your hope in anything other than God and his word is idolatry. So hope will have a direct impact on your joy. If you decide, I am going to put my hope in retirement, that's a big one for Americans. I'm going to work hard, I'm going to retire, I'm going to have an inheritance, I'm going to kick my feet up, we're going to have this whole property, and it's going to be awesome. Retirement plan. If you put all your hope in retirement, it will rob you of joy. It's going to have an impact on your joy. Why? Because what you're doing by putting your hope in retirement is you are worshiping and saying, you must fulfill the deepest longings of my heart. And I'm hoping, I have a confident expectation that if I put all of my time, resources, and effort into retirement, that when I actually get retirement, that God that I'm worshiping will bring the satisfaction that I'm looking for. And so, putting your hope in anything other than God and the clear commands that he has given in the scriptures, putting your hope in anything other than that will have an impact on your joy, and it is idolatry. You put your hope in the God that you worship. That's what worship is in one of its deepest forms. You're going to the thing you value the most, you think is the most worthy thing in the world for you to place all of your hope, your joy, and your satisfaction in. That's what worship is. And so if you're putting your hope in something other than God, you are committing idolatry. You're serving something other than God, okay? So, now, we've talked about this a little bit, the difference between surface idols and source idols. Surface idols are normally the practical outworkings that you could actually tangibly see that are linked to a source idol, a root idol. So retirement, perfect example, right? That's a tangible thing. I am saving money and I have all this plan and investments to make sure that I retire. Now, retirement's not a sin. Okay, that's actually a good thing. Leaving an inheritance for your children is actually a command from God. Okay? So if you neglect that, you're neglecting what God has said you must do. Okay, so we're not picking on retirement because it's evil. We're picking on it because it's an idol for a lot of people to worship. The surface level is the investments, the money, the tangibles to say, if I can save all this and plan in the right way, then I will get to finally have retirement, and then that will bring me hope and joy and satisfaction. Okay, that's the surface idol, retirement. What's the root idol? Why are you putting your hope in retirement? I'm going to argue as we begin to dig down, you're going to come to a real, genuine end of your desires and say, that's what you're ultimately wanting. That's what you're actually after. That looked like it could have been the end desire, but it's not. You just want that because you want something else. I want retirement because I want to be comfortable. And comfort is my source idol. I want retirement because I want control of my future and the end of my life. And control is actually your root idol. Okay, so source idols are those deep down sources. This is the source of all of your activity in your life, or a lot of activity in your life. Okay, it's the source of that. So I'm going to argue there's 4. Now, I'm not arguing this because I'm some brilliant guy who searched all the scriptures and was like, there's 4, okay? I did do quite a bit of that, but these are 4 that have been brought out in theology textbooks and in systematic theologies when you do studies on idol worship. These are what the vast majority of theologians would say, at the root, this is pretty much what you're after. This is what you're worshiping. It's one of these 4, okay? Number 1 is comfort. Number 2 is approval. Number 3 is control. And number 4 is power. Now, you might be here and you might have multiples. So this is why I said, please don't use this as some sort of Enneagram list. You're going to have a tendency to do that and just make this kind of your thing. Like, oh, I'm control and that's my problem. You might be. And that might be a huge thing for you. Okay? But you probably are going to struggle with multiples. Okay? And it's not going to be... Don't play a victim card here, okay? You can turn this, because we're talking about it, you can turn it into some sort of like lighthearted sin. I struggle with control. No, you're worshiping control as a god and you're serving it other than the living God. That's what we should keep in mind, okay? So don't play the victim card. Don't start kind of making your sin this like lighthearted thing like, oh, there's my control again. I'm just struggling with control. No, you're worshiping a God of control. And the God of the Bible is jealous, and he will visit the iniquity of the fathers on the 3rd and 4th generation because you are worshiping that, okay? So I'm trying to help us not get sucked into this, okay? But why do you think we're talking about this in a marriage conference?
Because it plays out.
Yeah. Big time. What happens when you're worshiping an idol and you're worshiping a god and somebody comes in and messes it up? If somebody came in the room right now, in the back of the room, and said, I don't even want to say like things that are blasphemous out of my mouth, but started saying a bunch of blasphemous things about Jesus Christ, would we just sit here and be like, oh, okay? No, something in you better get riled up. Why? Because you're messing with the God that I serve and worship. What happens in a marriage when the wife starts messing with the idol that a man is worshiping? It gets ugly. It gets ugly. If work is my idol, right? So that's my tangible idol. And at the end of it, I actually want power. Okay, so there's my source idol. I'm obsessed with my work because this is what my God demands of me. And if I can work the right way, then it gives me power and influence over people. And I love power and influence. And your wife starts saying, you work too much. It's no longer just you work too much. What is it actually saying? I hate your God. Ooh, now you got fighting words on your hands, right? I hate your God. I hate the God you're worshiping. I hate the fact that you've bended your knee to this God and you've given your life over to it. And now you're going to end up with a big fight in the home. okay? That's why we're talking about this. Because what it should allow us to do, first and foremost, is to identify the idols in our homes and be able to say, here's my idol, and this is what I struggle with, so I should be attentive to that so that when somebody comes in and I start getting riled up, I might go, ooh, I'm getting riled up and frustrated because my child or my wife is getting in the way of the God that I worship. And that should identify that, and you should be able to say, okay, I got to work on that. That's not actually their problem, that's my problem. I'm worshiping a God here. What you should be able to do is to see that in your spouse, and you should be able to identify it, and with grace and kindness and righteousness, point it out and say, honey, I love you, but that feels like the God you're worshiping. So how do I help you? How do we come along? It should also, hear me, I'm not saying you should not care that your spouse worships an idol, but it should give you grace towards your spouse. If you can identify, my wife really struggles with comfort. That when she's worshiping that and she has a flip out moment because you just poked her idol right in the eye, you should be able to say, I'm going to give grace here. Because if she pokes my idol, I'm going to freak out. And now she's freaking out because we're poking her idol. And I'm going to work well with her here. I'm going to come alongside. I'm going to be gentle. I'm going to be gracious. I'm not going to allow her to worship this idol, but in a loving way and in a patient way. Remember, the Lord is long-suffering. That's what he just said in Exodus. You're worshiping other gods and I'm jealous and I'll visit the sin of iniquity, but he's also merciful. And he's also long-suffering, forgiving iniquity. So when we are dealing with our spouse's source idol, we should be able to be gracious, forgive quickly, be long-suffering with them. It's going to take a long time for you and for your spouse to smash their source idol. This is not something that today, maybe, but man, the Lord just sometimes does it. It's pretty rare though. This is not going to be something that you just figure out today and go, oh, that's my source idol. I'm done. Like from here on out, I'm not going to worship that. If that happens, you did not find your source idol. Okay? You came up with some sort of fake one so that you can throw that one out. Yay! But really you're like, oh, yes, I get to keep my actual idol. This is going to be a long process, okay? And so we should have grace and compassion with notice I didn't say empathy, I said compassion. Compassion for our spouse as they try to deal with this source idol. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk through this to hopefully help you to be able to identify your source idol. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to have the graph over here. We're going to walk through the graph, and then we're going to jump over to here and kind of read a description about that idol, okay? So first, the idol of comfort. What is the greatest desire, the supreme desire of somebody who struggles with the idol of comfort? They desire pleasure. They want pleasure. They hate doing things that are difficult and hard. They hate it. I want to do things that are easy and that bring me pleasure. Their greatest desire is lack of stress. This person gets stressed easily, very easily, and anything that stresses them out, they hate, they will avoid, they will run from, and they probably want to put themselves in a position where there's going to be high stress. They want comfort. Their greatest desire is freedom. This person hates being tied down, okay? This person hates being tied down. This person wants freedom. Why? Because they want the freedom to be able to decide when they can and can't do something, because their entire life is bent towards, I just want to be comfortable. So being tied down to something means at some point you're going to have to work through something very difficult, and they hate that. So you can see how this would be very difficult in a marriage, because marriage is not comfortable. You have to deal with very, very difficult things in a marriage. So if this is an idol for you, this is going to be a difficult one for you and your spouse, because you're going to avoid a ton. You're going to seek for freedom. This person is probably going to say things like, I just need time to myself. Okay? You're going to hear that a lot. Doesn't mean everybody's probably going to say that at some point, but that's going to be a reoccurring theme for this type of person. I just need time to myself. Okay? I got to go do something fun. I got to go do something I enjoy. Why? Because they're just seeking comfort. They want comfort, okay? What's their greatest fear? That's their greatest desire. What's their greatest fear? Their greatest fear is stress. They hate stress. They will not put themselves in a position where they feel hard pressed. They want to just live free, carefree, comfortable lives. They're also, one of their greatest fears is boredom. These people hate being bored, okay? These people, I think the new generation just doesn't handle boredom well anyways. Like I was, like pretty much anybody under 30. Okay, anybody under 30 is probably just gonna struggle with being bored because we're just always like going to the next thing. We got like Instagram and all that, like Twitter, but no, this person hates boredom. Not that like they're sitting and they're bored and they put their phone out and they just like flip through something. No, this person like gets like twitchy when they're bored. Like they want to go do something fun and comfortable, right? They want to go do the next fun activity with the family, all right? This person's actually fears boredom. If you were to say to this person, we're going to go to a marriage conference and it's going to be on Friday night and then all day Saturday, they might be like, like that doesn't sound that fun. I want to do something fun, okay? Sitting in a chair isn't, this is the source idol of most kids until a certain age, right? They just like constantly like, but that's not fun, that's not fun. That's why you put your kid down for bed is just like the worst because they're like, this isn't fun. Right? Why? Because they just want to do something comfortable. They hate being uncomfortable. They haven't worked through that. They hadn't have a parent that is forcing them to do things uncomfortable, which you should do as a parent, but this isn't a parenting conference. The price they're willing to pay. Remember how I said every idol demands sacrifices? What's the sacrifice? What's the price that this person's willing to pay? Productivity. This person is not a productive person. They like comfort. They don't like to be bored, so to ask them to sit and get a task done, to ask them to gut through something that's difficult is not going to be okay. They are going to sacrifice productivity on the altar so that they can have comfort. They're also going to sacrifice commitments. Commitments demand stress. They demand difficulty to make a commitment to something. These are those, this is like, and if I'm describing you, good. You should just be able to say, yep, that's me. These are those families that say, we're going to commit to basketball. That was me growing up. Basketball, right? And when I was in high school, 5 practices a week after school, before and after school sometime, and for about 3.5 months going to playoffs, you're looking at almost 4 months of basketball season, 5 days a week, and you're there every day, period. And these are the families that but we have to take I had this one kid that took a ski trip to Europe, right? And he was like one of our best players. We ended up losing the game. We really needed to win. Guess what Garrett's idol was? Basketball. And I was pissed because this family was like, we got to go have this fun thing. Now that's going to be this person all the time. Well, there's a commitment. I don't want to do the commitment because we have this really fun opportunity where I want to go do the fun thing instead of be committed to the thing that we've already committed to. So this person is willing to sacrifice commitment for fun, for comfort, okay? When this person's stressed, they get lazy. They get very lazy. Why? Because working hard is stressful, working hard is not comfortable, and I don't like that, and so I get lazy. This person will blame others for most of their problems. They're not willing to just admit, I'm pretty bad at that. Now, this is kind of most people's problem. Most people have a difficult time admitting their sins and their flaws, but this person has a really difficult time doing that. They like to just blame others for their problems. And most of the time it's, you didn't allow me to have comfort. You didn't allow me to have the fun experience. If you guys would all just bend your knee to my life, then I would be comfortable. It's everybody else's fault that I'm not comfortable. This person, when they are in a relationship and they're close to somebody, like a spouse, others often feel hurt by them. The reason why? They're constantly getting blamed for why they're not comfortable. If you would just shape up here and quit bringing all this stress and quit bringing all this anxiety and quit bringing all the problems, then my life would be comfortable. And so people just feel hurt by that. The other thing is that people will often feel neglected by this person, because if you are committed to somebody and you're committed to them as God intends you to be committed to them, then that takes effort and work. And you have to work really hard to be in relationship with somebody. And this person says, no, it's too much work. It's too hard. It's too difficult. And it's uncomfortable. And so I'm just going to neglect you because you bring a lot of the stress. And so this person can feel neglected. Things to listen for. If you are a person who struggles with this idol of comfort, you're going to say, I'm bored a lot, or some sort of version of that. Okay, I'm bored. You're also going to hear, I have commitment issues. I have heard this from so many young people in particular. It's this weird new phrase that young people like to say, I have commitment issues. What you're really saying is, I hate things that are uncomfortable. That's why I said everybody under 30 pretty much is worshiping this idol. We've been raised in a generation where every difficult thing has been spared from us, and we're not supposed to let our kids be pushed into difficult situations. We're just constantly coddling, are you comfortable? Are you happy? Oh, did this thing stress you out? Let me move that thing. And so we've created a generation of people that are just worshiping comfort, and so they will say, I have commitment issues. What they're really saying is, I don't like things that are uncomfortable. So that's what this person will probably say out of their mouth a lot. Relationships are work, and therefore they are often not deep. If a person with comfort is in a relationship, often their relationships will be shallow, because deep relationships are hard work, and it brings stress, and it's uncomfortable. And so a lot of the times, it's just more shallow type of conversations with somebody who, you know those people. You want to dive into something deep and maybe difficult to talk about, or deep theological, or something that people are arguing about, and they're like, oh, do we have to talk about something like that? Can't we just talk about something not as stressful and not as deep? That's a person who struggles with the idol of comfort. Okay, so now flip over to the other page where you see comfort at the top. Okay, nobody would actually say this statement out of their mouth, but this is at the heart. This is what they actually believe. Okay, if you struggle with comfort, you are saying life only has meaning and I only have worth if I have this blank pleasure experience or this blank particular quality of life. Life only has meaning if I get to enjoy this comfortable experience, this pleasurable experience. If I've controlled my life in such a way where now I am able to be comfortable and now I'm in that pleasurable, comfortable experience, that's the only way my life has worth and value, is if I'm comfortable. Okay? They also will say, I only have worth and value if I am able to have a particular quality of life, right? Difficulty in finances, difficulty in penny pinching, difficulty in not being able to buy everything that you want, not being able to go to all the fun other vacations that everybody else gets to go on. Those types of things will crush this person. They will say, I don't have worth and value because I can't, like the Smiths over there, take my family to Hawaii for 10 days. Okay? That's what this person believes. Here's what you need to hear if this is your source idol. Joy cannot be found in fleeting, self-seeking pleasures. Having the desire for comfort is a good desire. To seek pleasure, to seek being happy is a good desire, but you got to point it at the right thing. Pointing it at anything other than Christ will leave you with zero joy. The other thing, comfort will fail you and leave you feeling hopeless and empty. If you put your hope and your worship in the idol of comfort, it will leave you feeling hopeless and empty. Okay, so any thoughts or questions about comfort? Maybe you're here and you're like, that kind of sounds like me, and I have a question about that. Yeah?
So the part of the stress of work, how does the person who, I guess, is a male, right? So a man,
Okay.
the mandate is work, but the work causes those things. How do they grapple with that?
Yeah.
Those two, that tension is like a very tough line because the overworking could be a thing. That whole to get comfort and pleasure piece.
Yeah.
But then it's deriving that stress.
Yeah.
from it. Yeah. I guess.
If you're a man and you feel like this could be your idol, work is just this massive obstacle for you.
Right.
You're willing to do it because you're a faithful man, you love Christ, you know the call, okay, I gotta work, I gotta provide for my family. But instead of, you might be a person that can look at other men going to work and you're like, why does it seem like they just don't care? They're just happy to go to work, do their stuff, and get home. And you're like, every day is like a grind for me, right? That's probably because this is an obstacle in the way of your idol, which is comfort. And if this is the most uncomfortable part of your life, it's just a grind to get through it. Doesn't mean you're not going to do it. It just means you're going to do it with this hatred and frustration at anything that is hard, especially at work, because it's not serving your ends to get to worship your God. So if you find yourself like that, it doesn't mean every day of work is just yes, but you're no, I look around, I know other men, and they're not as frustrated and angry at work. They can just kind of go to work and do their thing and get home. And you're like, that's not me. Something in me gets anxious and frustrated, and I grind at work because I just am so uncomfortable. Then you're probably in this category, probably. But like I said, great, if that's your idol, then that's your idol, and we gotta work to mortify that. You might also be a person, and this would be something. I would put this in the category of maybe I'd put this in the ladies category more than I would the men's, but maybe not, and we could talk about it. I think most ladies are gonna struggle with the idol of control at some level, but it either is your source idol or you're gonna struggle with control as one of your idols to get to your ultimate idol, which is comfort. You're gonna use control and you're obsessed with controlling, but what are you actually doing with your control? I really just wanna be comfortable. So I'm gonna just do everything I can to be comfortable. If you're a man, you might try to do that at work. That's why I'm bringing it up. You might be able to try to say I hate things when something gets brought to my desk and I'm just freaking out because that wasn't part of the plan, and now I'm uncomfortable because now I gotta go have this conversation and all that stuff. But instead of being able man, that's a bummer and that's uncomfortable, but I'm gonna go do it. It brings you anxiety and stress and you freak out and you hate it and then you come home and you're the type of guy that gets home and you're not tired at work like just most people are tired at work. You're it's like you've been to war and you're finally relieved to just not be at war. If you're that coming home, yeah, you might struggle with this idol of comfort. I just need to be comfortable. Does that help a bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
It does.
Okay. Good.
I'd be curious to what kind of weapons can you slay that with? But yeah, that's another question.
What do you think? What do you think the big weapon is? The overarching weapon, not the little practicals, but the big one to fighting all these idols. What is it?
Honestly, for me, it's just breaking down in prayer, but that's.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Prayer for what? Yeah, satisfaction in Christ. I want to be a man or a woman that is so satisfied in Christ and worshiping Christ that I can get through this uncomfortable situation because I'm not looking to other things for comfort. I'm looking to Christ for my comfort. And so put me in any situation. That's when you can be Paul in prison and be like, okay. Because not because Paul had all these very awesome little practical hints and tips to help him sit in prison and be comfortable. It's because he was seeking comfort somewhere else, not in work or something else. Yeah.
That's mine.
Okay.
But one thing I struggle with is expectations.
Yes.
Especially with the girls.
Yeah.
I just want them to behave a certain way.
Yeah.
Without lots of effort.
Yep.
And then that causes stress because
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
deal with
Yeah. The expectations are, that's a problem with every idol, I would say. Because what are you doing with expectations? Remember last night when we talked about Paul in prison in Philippi, and he said, it's my eager expectation and hope that Christ will always be glorified in my body, whether by life or by death. So what you're worshiping, you're expecting something from it. So you're going to set up expectations to say, you're going to satisfy me when I get this. So expectations for everyone. And yeah, with the comfort one, this is why I said people around you can get really hurt. Because you'll put your expectations on those people, and when they're not allowing you to be comfortable, your attack is on them. It's a very different thing to attack work, right? Like, I hate my job. Well, that's like, it's a thing, but it's not. It's people, but it's mostly a thing. It's like this ethereal thing. Like, I just hate work. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't like that job. This person will go to a bunch of different jobs to try to figure out.
Expectations go onto God.
Right.
You move it up out of that, and then you're like, why are you letting this be this way?
Correct. You can
But
do
it's
that.
still expectations.
You can do that really quick. So, but with in the home, you can put it on the person and say, you are making me uncomfortable. Therefore, you're the problem in our home. So that can be a problem. Yeah. Did you want?
Yeah, so question, so do you, in your experience, is that gonna be the norm? So if I just read through this, I'm like, oh, I got a 4.
Yeah.
And the norm is, I'm probably safe to say there's other people in here that I could get them to identify the 4. Is that probably
some
gonna be the
area.
norm that you're gonna see this, and then there's one's winning out to the other one?
Yeah. You're
Every
probably
time I
gonna.
live my life all day. Like that's all. Like I've never met a man who doesn't want to be comfortable and check out, but that's because something else is happening there.
Right.
Like I'm not a guy who wants to not do anything.
Right.
And
Yeah, I mean, picking up a chainsaw and climbing on the side of a cliff and cutting brush and getting dirty and tired is not necessarily like, I want to be comfortable.
Right.
But you will have some level of being like, well, I like comfort. But yeah, you're right. Like, you're not probably going to say, this is my end-all, be-all, is comfort. It's probably going to, you want comfort mostly because you're, like, in your position, maybe not. You'd have to identify it. But your comfort is ultimately getting you to some other thing. Right? So even at work, like, you could be exhausted and in a position that most men aren't in, like in your position, and you're like, I don't necessarily need to be comfortable like other guys have to be comfortable, but I want this to be comfortable. And what comfortable means is everybody better do what I tell them to do. And if everybody doesn't do what I'm telling them to do, I'm uncomfortable. But really, what's the root there? Power. It's influence, right? So yeah, and you might find yourself going, I'm kind of this, and I'm kind of this, and you'll just see one win out more, but you might have a few that are like, yeah, these ones are set up high, and I need to figure out how to knock these ones down. Okay, we really got to keep going. I'm sorry, I'm like just, it's your fault that we're, no, I'm just kidding. That was a joke because of the idol we just talked about. Yes, Crystal.
I'm all of these.
Yeah. And here's what I was going to say, and I forgot to say this at the beginning. If you're in here and you are new to Christ, you are going to be like, I am really at a lot of these, or like all of them. And if you're probably farther along, what you're going to be able to do is really narrow cast yourself into one. If you've been a Christian for a while, you're probably going to say, no, this one idol is pretty much my one idol. If you're new to Christianity and you just got saved, you're going to be like, I am just on all of these. Okay, so don't despair, Crystal. Don't despair at saying I'm all of these.
Like, what am I gonna do?
That's just part of the sanctification process. That's just part of becoming like Christ. Is Him tearing down your idols and that. Okay, so let's do approval. This is mine for sure, so that you can just kind of know that up front. Okay, approval. This person's greatest desire is approval, acceptance, validation. Okay. This person's greatest fear is rejection. They are terrified of being rejected. So if I'm in, like Frank was talking about going to work and maybe like the idea of comfort being an idol, if I was in his exact same shoes, instead of wanting to be comfortable and people getting like in the way of me being comfortable, I would go to work terrified to make sure every single person approved of me. So I would hate work if people weren't approving. If people like what I'm doing and approve of me and validate me, then work's fine. But as soon as people don't, I hate work and I want it out of my life, right? So this person's greatest fear is being rejected by people. That means that what you will do is be a chameleon. That's the tendency of a person that struggles with approval. You will be a chameleon. And then if you have a bunch of different communities, let's say you got, and if you're like a mom, let's say you got all of your 50,000 mom groups on Facebook, and you have your homeschool one here, and you have some church moms here, and then you have sports moms here, and you have hippie medicine moms here, okay? What you can do is come over here and be hippie mom and put that mask on and want to be approved by all these people and say a bunch of stuff that you would never say in front of your church women. Why? Because your entire desire is just, I need to be approved. So different mask for here, different mask for here, and you will not hold to your integrity and actually hold to your convictions and say, this is what I just actually believe. This person can be a chameleon because they're terrified of rejection. Okay? The price they're willing to pay, less independence. If you are somebody who desires approval, you are normally going to be a person seeking it out from people. So people are going to be your main. These people are actually normally really good with people. They love people. They love being around people. They get energy from people. They thrive around people. And if they're one of the reasons why is because they seek approval, and that can be like evil and idolatrous in people, but they're bent towards people. They love to hear how other people are thinking, and they can sit and listen to people really well, and they can articulate other people's thoughts and feelings really well, because this person is a master of people. They know people. They know the way people think. They know what the people want, and they know how to say the right words to make people approve. And so this person, they hate being alone for the most part. They hate it. Being alone is awful to this person. And to have them just sit at home by themselves for hours would be like the other person, like they'd just be twitching. Like, I just got to be with people. When they're stressed, they worry. They freak out. They worry a lot. They also begin to self-condemn. This person, if approval is what they're looking for, when they don't get it, sometimes they'll blame others, but most of the time these people aren't blaming others, they're blaming themselves. I'm not the way I want to be, and that's why people don't approve of me. So they'll self-condemn because it's all my fault, and if I could just be the person that these people wanted, then I would get what I'm looking for, which is approval. That's why this person has a tendency to be a chameleon, because they just desperately go internally and go, well, I could have said this here and that there, and I don't want this person to think bad of me, and it just gets ugly, okay? When how other people feel smothered by this person. I'm laughing just because if you ask Claire how our relationship has been, it has been smothering. Why? Because you're constantly at this person going, approve of me, validate me, love me, care about me. And you're just leave me alone for a second, okay? You're obsessed with it. And then what you tend to do is when there's one little tiny ounce of them saying, yeah, I don't really approve of this, you lose it. I mean, you are on the floor melted because they don't approve of you, right? And you can't handle criticism very, very well, okay? Why? Because you need people to love you and approve of you. So this is, people around you will feel smothered by you. Things to listen for from this person. What are they going to think? You will hear this person articulate a lot of, I wonder what this person's thinking, and I hope this person didn't get offended, and I wonder what that person, did they care about this? And they're constantly thinking about what other people are thinking about. Constantly. That's what their life is like. This person says, I don't think they like me. A lot. They will walk in a room and they'll leave, and the first thing in the car is, I don't know if they really thought that was like a good thing. I don't know if they like me that much. That's what you're going to hear from this person a lot. Relationships can feel smothering and often inconsistent. These people just sway with whether they're feeling approved or not approved. And in a relationship, if you are putting the burden on your spouse to satisfy that desire to be approved, they will feel smothered by you, but there'll be this inconsistency all the time, right? there was so much of this when we were first married, I would say, where I would say something like, oh, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this, and you were frustrated at me for this. And she was like, dude, I wasn't even thinking about you. Like I was over here and you were over there thinking I was thinking about you and running through all these scenarios in your head. And I was over here thinking about like what we're going to have for dinner. And so they can feel just smothered by you. One of the other tendencies of this person is to project onto other people their own like self-condemning. They'll constantly think people are condemning them. Constantly. They constantly project this on other people. And so they live in this world, and you'll find this, you can barely have a conversation with this person sometimes when they're really struggling with this. You can barely have a conversation because all they're doing is reading and relating. They're constantly just reading you and trying to figure out what does this person want to hear, and then they're trying to figure out what can I say for this person to approve of me. And so you're having a conversation with this person and you're going, you're not listening to me at all. Like I can tell you are just trying to read out the situation and figure out what you're supposed to say. Okay? So if you ever find me doing that, just say, you're doing it again. But that's what this person does, okay? If you would have met me 5-6 years ago, you would have been like, yeah, like you just do this all the time. You'd sit down and have a conversation with me and you would feel like you're not listening to me at all. You're just trying to figure out how you can fit in this conversation without being disapproved of. So this person is constantly saying what they think the person wants to hear and what they think is right. So that's approval, okay? Jump over to the other page, approval. Life only has meaning and I only have worth if I'm loved and accepted by this person. It could be a board of elders. It could be my father. It could be these few guys at work. It could be my spouse. I only have worth and value and life only has meaning if I'm approved by this person, okay? This person also needs to hear people will never be able to satisfy your longing to be loved and approved. They won't. That is a burden that if you put that on your spouse, you will crush them under that burden, saying you need to approve of me. And the remedy for this person is understanding that God knows every single thing about you. Every single thing. And then in Christ, he approves of you. Notice I didn't say he approves of all your sin. In Christ, you are absolutely, totally, fully approved. Approval will fail you and leave you feeling hopeless and empty. Okay, thoughts on approval? Questions about approval? How many of you in the room say, yeah, that's me? Like, that's me for sure. Or maybe some of you would say, I'm like kind of that, or maybe kind of something else. Okay.
I think it's a
Surface to get to something else. Okay.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Self-condemned, would that be like pity?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this person will constantly play the pity party. For sure. Okay, any other thoughts on that? Anybody else that's like, yes, that's totally me, and I need to...
In the box where it says, when stressed, does the worry come for different people? Like, do you worry?
Yes, dependent on how well you know this person. I know Claire loves me, cares about me, she's not going anywhere, so I'm going to worry less about her approval than I might a brand new coworker.
Yeah.
Brand new coworker, I'm going to freak out almost because I'm going to work hoping I can win this person's approval. Yeah, for sure. Any other thoughts on that? Approval? Okay. So control. This would be my wives. I would say that even if she was sitting here. I'm not saying it just because she left the room. Okay. This would be my wives and this person who struggles with control. If you're the woman in the home, you are going to struggle extra with wanting to be the head of the house. Okay. So if you're a man here, it's going to look a bit different because you are given that authoritative role in the home by God. When you're the lady, this can be a big problem in the home, because the idea of control means I know what's best and I will control everything around me, including my husband. Okay, so just a little warning before we get into the rest of this. So the person with control, their greatest desire, the biggest motivating thing for them is self-discipline, certainty, and standards. This person loves discipline. I mean, they like to have order and discipline of themselves and at home. It doesn't always necessarily mean they're totally like type A, kind of. They can be a person that can let the home go to a disaster but still have the idol of control. Okay, so don't think, well, I'm not that orderly, so I don't struggle with this. But they are a person that's motivated by self-discipline, by certainty, and by standards, okay? They love things to be certain, because anything that's uncertain is what? Out of control. They don't have control over things that are uncertain in their life. So they hate uncertainty. They love certainty. What's their greatest fear? Uncertainty. This person is not a spontaneous person at all. Okay? I remember when Claire and I were first married, and I planned a trip without her and like surprised her with like her bag packed, ready to go. And she lost her mind. Not angry at me, just went into a panic. It wasn't even like, I don't want to do this. Why would you do that? Why, we're not going on a trip. It wasn't that. It was like excited to go, but went into like, did you get this? Did you get this? Did you get this? What about this? What about this? I got to have my bag open. Why did you pack my bag? I got to have everything out so that I can figure out what's in the bag, because I got to have this on the trip. And if this, and I was like, holy crap. We're going for one night. Like you don't need that much. Like I packed underwear. That was it. Like I'm wearing this tomorrow. Like it's not that big of a deal. But the problem wasn't that this, like, she just doesn't like spontaneity. The problem with spontaneity is that's uncertain. I wasn't able to plan and prepare, and so that's out of my control. So now I gotta frantically get to the spot where I have control, and then I'll be happy. She was happy to go on the trip once she had the control over the situation. Okay? So this person hates uncertainty. The price they're willing to pay, loneliness and spontaneity. This person's actually very okay with being alone. Okay? Why? Because that's the most certainty they can have. If nobody else is around them, they can have control over their life. And so this person craves alone time. They crave it, mostly because they want to just have control over something. If you're the woman in the situation, you're going to crave alone time and loneliness, and that's a price you're willing to pay, away from the kids for a time, away from the husband for a time, so that you can just like sit and think and control the little bits of your life and just have paradise for a second. If you're a man, you're gonna have this craving to kind of like abandon ship to go get control. Okay, it's kind of like what we were talking about a little bit earlier. Is this idea of my wife and my children are getting in the way of me having mastery over my life, and so therefore I'm willing to abandon them to go get control. Okay. The person who struggles with control, when they are stressed, they are anxious. That's like I was talking about, right, with the trip. It's anxiety that you get frantic when things get out of control, okay? You are going to be a person that will probably struggle with anxiety that the world would say is like a clinical problem and that you need medicine for. Like that type of anxiety. Not the person who has approval and worries, who would say, I'm going to go into this situation and I'm going to be worried about what people think about me, and that causes a little bit of worry. No, this person's going to get to the like that type of anxiety over things that go out of their control. If you're a man, you're probably going to be able to like hold that a bit better than if you're a woman, but you're still going to be inside like freaking out. Your heart is going to be racing when things get out of your control, okay? This person also will start to condemn everybody and everything around them. This person is hates everything out of their control, and it's everybody else's fault for why they're not having control over their life. And so people around them can feel condemned because they are a micromanager, right? This person cares about down to the detail. You did not tie your laces right, pull up your pants a little bit higher, you didn't tuck your shirt in right, comb your hair the right way, down to just little bits, and people around them can just feel condemned. Like, you don't care about me at all. You just want to control me. You just want to control the situation. So this person will condemn a lot, which means other people feel condemned. They feel condemned and they feel micromanaged a lot of the time. This is the person. If you're the grandboy, if you're the thanks, Lorena. If you are the lady in the house, and you begin to start having children, that like motherly instinct, like you will mama bear even your own husband, right? Like you will trash him for just not putting the diaper on the right way, right? You will be like, there is a minuscule little tiny speck of poop that you did not wipe off the back of the leg when you were wiping the diaper. And how could you? Do you want our kid to get sick? Do you want him to get, do you want them to get...
You could just say this is real life.
Oh, we already talked about that. You're right. Like, do you not care? And that's what it starts. It starts at, instead of just like, hey, could you wipe it better next time? It's like, oh, so you don't care about me? You don't care about our child? You don't care about anything? You want our house to burn down? Like, it turns into that. Okay. If you're the lady, if you're the man, you are probably gonna become a tyrant in your home. Okay. The person who struggles with control, if you're the man, you're not normally gonna be the one who can like sit back and be quiet and be like, it's not that big of a deal. You are going to force, because you are a man, you are going to force your control upon your home. They will shape up and do what you want, and I don't care about your feelings, I don't care about your thoughts, I don't care about how you feel. You will just obey me. Okay?
Lunch is ready.
So that's one. Wait, almost there. Don't run for the pizza. That's how the person feels around people who have control. And then things to listen for. If I want it done right, I must do it myself. Okay? This person will not delegate, will not give other people responsibility because no, it just won't get done right. And what does right mean? The way I want it done. This person will say things like, why can't you just blank, whatever it is. It's your fault. Really what they're saying is, I'm just worshiping control and you just poked my idol in the eye when you can't just do things how I want it done. Okay? This person's relationships can be strained by micromanaging and condemning. You can really make people in your home, if you are a man, constantly feel condemned and not good enough to meet your standard. Instead of feeling, and this is the hard part, if you're a man, you have been given authority to have control in a certain sense, right? Control like Christ would have control over the church, right? You have that. But what the people around you can end up feeling like is just abused by your condemnation because you just won't do things like I want it done. If you're the man, people around you will normally just feel condemned by you in your home. If you're a lady, what you're going to do is you're going to use that to manipulate your husband by beating him down, using nagging and manipulation, and using his sin, which he probably has much of, using his sin as a leverage to just keep condemning him so that once you beat him down into a shell of a man, then you can take control. And now you can lead the home. So that's normally how that's going to play out with the lady, okay? So there's going to be a lot of emotional manipulation. If you're one of the ladies in the house with control, you're going to use your emotions to like hooks in the back of your husband so that he just walks around eggshells around the home. Like, I just don't want her to freak out that I messed up the dishes this right way. And you use that so that you actually have the control in the home and he doesn't have it, okay? So that's normally how control plays out. If you look over at your page, control, life only has meaning, and I only have worth if I am able to get mastery over my life in the areas of fill in the blank. Homeschooling, self-discipline, maybe a certain standard of physical fitness, making sure that everybody around you is holy and righteous. That could be a problem in the home. Life only has meaning, I only have worth if I'm able to have mastery over my life in certain areas. The problem with this is you are not in control. Period. You're just not. You don't live in a world that you can control. God is sovereign over the earth. He is sovereign over all things. You will never be able to get mastery over your life. It's not a thing. You're striving after wind when you're wanting to control. You won't have control. It's never going to happen. And you never will. You never will have it. And what happens when a person struggles with control, these people can spiral, like way quicker than most can. They can spiral into despair and anger and frustration because what happens to a person when they don't get control? They get anxious. They start condemning everybody and they claw and scratch for more control. And when they claw and scratch for it, what they end up doing is grasping after wind and realizing they don't have control. So what do? They repeat the process. I get anxious because now I don't have control. I'm condemning and I claw for more and then I don't get it and then I get condemning and then I claw for more and this person can just like real quickly just spiral down, okay? The remedy here is to be able to say, I never will have control. I'm not talking about self-control. Self-control is a spirit-empowered ability. I'm talking about that. I'm talking about controlling everything around you. I don't have it, but I do serve a God who is sovereign in the heavens, and he is in control of all things. And so instead of worshiping my control, I want to worship the God who actually is in control of all things. Absolutely. Okay.
And then start talking about control. But the control is.
Like, do you use control to get comfort?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. I mean, like, if you want something, how do you get it? You normally, like, try to control or manipulate to get what you want. So control is most of the time you're an idol of some kind. It just kind of depends on how much you're tapping into it to get what you want. And for some people, like, the end goal is just control. Like, I don't need anything. I just need to make sure that nothing is going to be spontaneous, nothing's going to be uncertain, so that's what I want. I just want like that. And sometimes those people will say, that's because I'm comfortable there, but some people don't necessarily need comfort. Like they can climb Mount Everest, but be like, I just need to meticulously go through every step I'm going to take on the mountain, make sure that I have all the gear, and they could just be obsessed with the control, but go do something super uncomfortable. So it just kind of depends on like how it plays out.
I was kind of trying to figure out which one is the source, the comfort or the control, or if they're both sources. Because with the comfort, I was like, all right, how do I mitigate that? I was like, or regimen, or structure.
Oh, interesting.
I don't need that much comfort. And then we started talking about control. I was like,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Wait till we get to power. No.
And the control, I think it's easier to disguise as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, I have authority here. God likes structure.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm forcing my family to be structured, I'm doing the right thing.
Isn't that a good thing? Right. That, if you've noticed, how did Satan convince Eve and Adam to worship something other than God? How do you do it?
Disguising it as good.
Well, disguising it as good. So every single one of these, the reason why it's really tempting to worship this is because it's actually a good thing, right? Seeking to be approved by people. You know the people that could care less what people think about them, and they're a bunch of jerks, right? Like, they normally are like, I don't care about you, I don't care about what you think, I don't care about what you think, like, whatever. And sometimes they, like, hold themselves like it's a good thing. Like, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. It's like, well, you should, right? Like, you should care what people think about you. If you're a jerk, then you should care that people are like, you're a jerk, right? But you can disguise it really easily. You can be deceived by saying approval is a good thing. I'm gonna seek to be approved by people. Doesn't God want that? Control is one that you can very easily fall into. God likes discipline, doesn't he? Doesn't he say to be self-controlled? Doesn't he like structure and order? He's a God of order, not disorder. It says it right there in 1 Corinthians. And so you can say, so I will be his instrument of control. If he wants it, I'll give it to him. I will master everything around me, and then he will have the control he's looking for. It's like, no, we're called to relinquish the control to God. Yeah. Any thoughts, questions on comfort, comments?
We would hold to, like you said this earlier with the category, so if psychology wants to slap the label, your suicidal can change with time as well.
Yep.
Like that, see that, like I want to say, well, I saw these times in my life, I say, well, I can jump from one to the other one.
Yes.
I can throw one in the trash, and then my suicidal becomes something else.
Yeah, and that's why I warned us at the beginning. Don't get so obsessed when you think, like, because you're probably leaving here. I hope this is very encouraging and going, yeah, okay, this is a real problem, and now that I've identified it, I hope that's why we're doing it. But what you also shouldn't do is say, I can't struggle with anything else but my suicidal. That's not true either. So don't start saying, well, actually, I don't struggle with approval. That's my husband. And I struggle with control, so I can't struggle with approval because that's his thing. That's just not how sin works. And if it was that easy, then most of us would have pretty good mastery over our sanctification. But the problem is like you just get deceived very easily. That's what happens to us. So yeah, it's good. You can jump source idols pretty fast. Anything else on control? No? Yeah.
So that's my
Mm-hmm.
so I just wanted to share something that we talk about is my control over my kids' health
Mm-hmm.
and why we eat the way that we do and live the way that we do. It's not, for somebody like me who struggles with control, it doesn't become like I'm doing this because this is the way God intended.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is a reason why, but when I am struggling with control, it becomes, no, I'm doing this because I want to control the outcome.
Right.
Like, I want to control, that my kids have, healthy teeth and all, I'm getting all the things for them to have healthy teeth, and then he tells me, why are you doing this? Are you doing this because you want to control, or, you're feeling anxious?
Mm-hmm.
Now you're in sin.
Mm-hmm.
Or are you doing this because this is,
God cares.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So, that's how we struggle with control.
That's really good.
Yeah,
That's really
so
good.
we talked about this with you guys early on, and so we kind of had these realizations. And so sometimes you won't let me buy a supplement until I'm ordering it without wanting,
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
ordering it because it's gonna help my anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to the wrong place to help
Yeah.
my anxiety about this health issue.
Yeah.
I think that could be a hard line as a mom because I think we
Yeah.
also were given really good convictions
Yep.
from the Lord over
Uh-huh.
our kids.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And he brings that wisdom, I think, sometimes. I don't know. But it's hard because I do see that kind of dance where it's like, well, the Lord opened my eyes to this and I want to choose the healthy right thing because that's what
But are you running to it because you're anxious, or are you running to it because this is
The
how
right-
God intended for
Yeah.
things to be used?
Correct. There's a difference with.
Yes, he provided herbs, but am I running to it because I'm super anxious that my kid has a cavity or something,
Yeah.
Or am
yeah.
I running to it because I'm like, no, God provided this, and I'm gonna use it for, in the right way.
Right. Yeah. You are called to never be anxious. And often we will use anxiety as one of our excuses for. You good?
I think it's okay.
Its foot's on the ground now.
Yeah. My foot is on the ground.
And
Such a
so,
big.
when he says, you can't buy this if you're buying it for the wrong reason, he's dealing with my heart first before, he's like, this is more important
Yeah.
than, this person's character.
Right.
I just use some type of
For sure. And that's one of the ways for you to begin to identify where you're wanting control is if something happens and it causes you anxiety, what is your anxiety? Where does it cause you to run to? Does it cause you to run to whatever thing you can have in your grasp to control the situation? Or does it cause you to fall on your knees and beg the Lord? Because that's what you should do. It should, your desire when something happens and you need to control a situation, your first instinct should be stop, fall on my knees, and pray to the God who's actually in control of all things. And then I can step forward without anxiety into whatever the situation I need to do, right? There's a lot of people who use their, exactly kind of what Lorraine is saying. They'll use their control as an excuse that to play God. No, this is like God gave us herbs. That's such a good analogy, right? Okay, God gave us herbs, therefore I have every right to anxiously grab the right herb and the right essential oil to fix my child because they have this problem or whatever it is, right? Instead of saying, no, God gave it and it's good, and He's in control and sovereign. So I'm gonna pray to the Lord of heaven to help in this situation, and then I'm gonna pick up the herb and give it to my kid. Very different. So, yeah,
So there's that preparedness for Paul too, right?
Yeah.
Preparing
Mhm.
the storehouse so that when the child is sick, you do have that thing on hand.
That's right.
But then also that line again of am I anxious, so I'm filling the cabinet with all these things because I'm worried they're gonna get this.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes it's an approval thing too, right? Oh, well, if I don't have this, then I may not be a good mom.
Yeah.
Or you're observing other women or
Or,
anybody
you failed
else,
them
and they're
on
doing it,
everything.
and you're going, man, am I that kind of
Uh-huh.
dad?
Yeah.
Am I, and so then
Yeah.
it becomes
Yeah.
that can also be a part of it too.
Yeah.
I think
That brings it
exactly
into
too,
question.
is it only that one thing that's gonna bring me peace?
Right.
Going to that one thing.
That's my
Is that gonna bring me
issue.
satisfaction?
Literally,
Yeah.
that's my issue. If I get into my flesh, I'll order this thing, and I feel better now.
Yeah. Right.
Because this is gonna help them.
Right. Which goes.
And I'm not saying that these things are wrong. This is how we would choose to live, no matter what.
Right.
But
Right.
it's my heart behind it. The heart posture is that.
Right. And that's why I said nobody would ever say this out of their mouth, but I put down life only has meaning and I only have worth if I'm able to get mastery over my life. Because that's what's happening there, is you're actually saying I'm lacking in hope and joy and satisfaction, and if I get that thing, then I'll finally have it. Then I'll be able to be at peace, I'll be satisfied, and
But
you're never satisfied, right? You will constantly have the next thing that you have to have control over. So, yeah, it's really good. Anything else on control? No?
Is there a helpful way to distinguish between which one is the source between comfort and control?
Yeah,
I know you brought it up earlier a little bit about that tension, but
yeah.
it seems like sometimes that's the hard thing for me is I'm looking at both of those two.
You're
and
bouncing. Yeah.
Okay, all four, but these two, it's which one is it? Because on some control, for example, I won't care if the kids have a messy room in a sense, but my spot has to be completely right.
Right.
But I
Right.
won't go berating them over that. Okay, let's work on this. or
Yeah,
whatever. So
yeah.
sometimes it feels like it's more of the comfort, and the control is a mechanism to get the comfort.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I would say, which one would you have an easier time letting go of? If you didn't get it, would it be comfort or would it be control? If you could have comfort without the control, would you take it? Or if you could have control, but I'm going to be in a real tough situation, but I'm going to have control, so then I'm going to be okay. Which one could you get rid of easier would be one of the ways to identify it. And then the other way I would say is which one do you find yourself feeling, like Ryan was saying, where you would get peace, stillness, satisfaction, worth in your life? Okay, that now I'm satisfied because I have that. If you find yourself saying, I can have all the control in the world, but if the control doesn't get me comfort, then I'm not going to be satisfied. So then that would be one of the, or the other way around. You might be able to say, yeah, I could have all the comfort in the world, but I wouldn't be satisfied unless I'm controlling my life, like how I want to be able to control it. Like, okay, you could be somebody that's comfortable in the Amazon in a tribe being a missionary. That could be comfortable for you as long as you know you're in control. Right? But if there's some people that are like, dude, no. Like I want control, but I will never go be in that kind of uncomfortable situation. I need my stuff. I need my things. I need things that bring me pleasure. So what could you lose easier? Will help you. And then what are you actually going to for that like stillness in your soul, that peace, that tranquility that like keeps your heart from vibrating, right, with anxiety. Anything else before we move on? Okay. All right, last one here. Okay, we're gonna look at power. Okay, power. So this person who struggles with the source idol of power, their greatest desire, or you could even say like biggest motivator, is success and influence. Success and influence. These are most of the time your high level thinkers, your big entrepreneurial type of people. You see this a lot in megachurch pastor type people. You see this in those people that they could have 500 employees under them, and it would be like, I'm perfectly comfortable there. I want to cast vision. I want to send us in a certain direction. These people want to be in that spot. They love to be the person that has influence and power over people, okay? Who do you think struggles with this more, men or women? For sure. For sure. This is for sure a temptation for men more than it would be a temptation for ladies. If a lady is prone to this, it's going to look very different than a man, right? It will be harder to identify in a lady than it would be to identify it in a man, okay? Because a man is going to seek to be the one who is dictating, teaching, has power, has a position of power, has authority, and so he's just going to gravitate towards that position because like we know in the world, if there's an opening, it's going to get taken. Like if there's an opening for somebody to step into power and control and influence, that void is like a vacuum and it will suck in somebody. So amongst every group of people, there is somebody who will just place themselves there. And that's normally going to be a person who struggles with power and control. Sometimes not. Like I would... I have to do some more checking on this with my own heart, but I would say up to now, I have never put myself in the category of like, I want power and influence. And yet there's been many years where I'm in positions of power and influence. Like this church can go one way depending on what Garrett wants or thinks. Now, hopefully it's not. We've set up some pretty good structures to be able to say, no, there's enough men here to go. Yeah, no, absolutely not. But I find myself in positions of power. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you are struggling if you're in that position. But if you are in that position, chances are you got sucked into it because you were seeking it out. You are just a person who desires to have power and influence over people. So success and influence, very strong desires. Greatest fear, humiliation. To be humiliated would be a big one. to be seen as somebody who didn't succeed, to be somebody who failed in an endeavor, would be this person. This person is probably not gonna try too many extremely difficult endeavors if it means that he could be humiliated or she could be humiliated in it. The price that this person's willing to pay, being burdened. This person is okay. They will sacrifice themselves and be okay with lots of burdens placed on their shoulders because it's worth it to them to have the power and the influence over people. And so they'll take the burden of people on their shoulders. They are okay with responsibility and being responsible for things. That's one of the prices they're willing to pay. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means they're okay with that. I'm okay with being responsible for a lot because it's worth it for me to have power and influence over people. This person, when they're stressed, they can go two ways. I mean, this person with power can go into like a deep, dark hole of, I put it down here, feel like a failure. Like they can just go into this hole of feeling like a failure. It's fascinating. A lot of people who struggle with power will be the ones quick to suicidal thoughts. One, because they bear a lot of burdens, they bear a lot of responsibility, and when they're humiliated, they feel like a failure, and it's not worth feeling like humiliated in front of people. So they will go to that drastic, like it's just not worth it, or they will go into a rage. They'll go into a rage. You just stepped up against me. The situation at work, these people got in the way of me having power and influence, and so I'm stressed, and so I'm going to get angry, and I'm going to bully people into a corner to get back my power and to get back my influence and control. So this person can go both ways when they feel stressed out. This person's normally a quick-tempered person, normally, not always, but normally. This person can deal with people telling them that they think that their idea was bad. They would say, okay, tell me what you think. And then this person's able to take a rebuke and work with it. And sometimes they will, instead of saying, it's my fault, thank you for bringing that up, somehow they'll twist it to necessarily be, it's your fault. It's your fault. And they will twist it so that they can maintain the power in the relationship. If somebody says, hey, I'm coming to you because I don't think you're good at that, they see that as a power grab, not just a loving rebuke. And so they'll twist it, they'll take it, but they'll twist it and in a really manipulative way actually start to blame the other person for that very thing so that they can maintain the power and control, because everything is about maintaining power to them. So they see any type of pushback normally as a new grab for power. You're trying to take my position. You're trying to take influence, and I'm not going to let you have it. This person makes people around them feel used a lot. You are just a pawn in my game. And if this person does have power and influence, people underneath them, and if you're a man and you have a home, you have people underneath you, you will set a course of action and you will say, this is where we're going, and you better not get in the way of us getting here. You better not get in the way. And so these people will just feel like used. Dad just wants to do that, and we're all here to just make sure that dad gets what he wants. He wants to be successful there, and so he doesn't care about any of us. He just wants to make sure that he's successful, and we're just a part of him being successful. That's a really fine line to walk, because should a man set a course of action for his family? Yes. Should he then say, when people get off course, get back on course? We're going this way. Yes. But what should his family have a really good understanding of? This isn't just dad's plans. This isn't just mom's plans if you struggle with that. Dad is wanting us, mom is wanting us to bring honor and glory to God. And he is helping us have greater affection for the glory of God, be satisfied in the glory of God, and make sure we're aiming at the glory of God, not the glory of dad, right? not the glory of mom. So people can just feel very, very used in a family or underneath a person who struggles with power. So things to listen for. I don't need help. I don't need help. I have the strength. I got this. I'll take all the burden. I'll take all the responsibility. I don't need anybody's help. You'll hear things like, I don't want to fail. I don't want to fail. I don't want to be humiliated. Relationships can be badly hurt through anger and addiction. Person that struggles with power, they're going to be addicted to things most of the time. Okay, maybe a substance, but this is the person who's addicted to their work. They're just addicted to it. This is a person who is addicted with success, right? And it might be even success of the family, right? And so people just get beaten down because this person is just addicted to nobody in my family is going to be a failure. Nobody. We are going to be a successful family. And so they just crush people underneath them to make sure that they line up and are successful. So, any thoughts about power? I feel attacked. How dare you?
I rebuking my daughter for something, and the words that came out of my mouth were, "Please don't do this to us." And that sounds like this person.
Yeah.
Like, how can you do this to our family, not just like you're doing to yourself?
That's a really good distinction. When people fall out of line in your family, it's not about coming alongside them and helping them to see you're not honoring God, which means you're not being satisfied. You need to grow in your affections for Christ. The tendency will be like, don't ever step on my turf again. Don't mess things up for me. Don't make our family look bad in the eyes of others, because that reflects on me. So that's a very good distinction, Steve. This person has a really hard time pointing people towards Christ and understanding their hearts and saying, I want you to love Christ. It's normally, no. You reflected bad upon me, especially if it's the dad, especially if it's the father of the home, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you said you would never identify this until recently.
Yeah.
Because this is definitely something that wasn't present until like my 30s. And as a young man, if anybody looked at me when I was in my early 20s, I was very opinionated about all the answers to things. But if they looked at me and were like, we'll put it all on you, and everything happens is your fault, I'd have been terrified.
Yeah.
Most young guys will. They'll back up, and all of a sudden their opinions get really quiet. And then as I got older, that's not the case. Like, I'll take all of that.
Yeah.
And then the confidence I have, though, a lot of it, when I'm in sin, it's in my ability to crush people to the point of performance.
Yeah.
Like I see this in the military all the time. Like, I can get you into line. And what's interesting about this one too is I think it's very easy to hide it behind masculinity.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of overlap between the biblical, the menu mandate, what I'm called to do as a man, this is what men are supposed to be doing, and like there's a lot of, like there's good things in this, but there's this line to where, like, you know, son, you only exist in my life, and as far as you do what you're supposed to do, so that we're successful.
Yep.
And
Right.
the people, the guys in my unit, whoever that is, it's great. Like, the hitting on the use part. Like, you're very tempted to use people.
Yes.
For
Yeah.
how well you benefit me, and that's how much you belong in my life, or how much value I have.
Yeah. If you will cut somebody out because you don't see them as useful to your ends, you struggle with this. You for sure struggle with this. You're not, and this is why pastors can really struggle with this. And you'll see, like, I was a part of a church before we went to Thailand. And I was working there, and I walked into the lead pastor's office. He knew that we were praying about going to Thailand. And I walked into his office, and I was like, hey, like, we've been praying for a year. I really think that this is where the Lord's calling us. And he got this, like, white look on his face, and I was like, uh-oh. And he looked at me and said, God doesn't want you to do that. And he's like, I know what God wants for your life, so you just listen to me. And I was like, what? Now, does an older man who's been in ministry for a long time, can he say that to a certain extent? I hope so. I hope he can say, hey, young man, you think you know how to discern the will of God, but let me show you where you've erred in some ways in discerning that, and let me help you to be able to discern the will of God better. The problem was he finished up the sentence with, this is my church, and you will not hurt my people. And I went, gotcha. Okay, this is not God's church. This is not Christ's church. This is your church. And so all I was to him was a pawn in making sure his church was successful. And when I didn't want to serve his ends anymore, it was like, oh, get out of my way. Just be done with you. So he looked at me and he said, you either sign a contract right now to be here for the next 3 years, or you're done in 3 weeks. And I said, great, I'll take the 3 weeks. Because that just shed this huge light on how many problems that church had. Here was a man struggled with power, and he said, you're either going to serve me for 3 years or get out of my way now. Because I don't care about you. I don't care about your family. I don't care about the glory of God. I don't care about all of those ends. Just you're not serving my purposes, and get out of my way. So yeah, that's a huge tendency in ministry in particular to just use people towards this is good. I'm the pastor here, and I've been ordained by God to make sure we're heading in the right direction. So I know what's best in the right direction. Anybody that doesn't meet that, you're out. And you'll watch the sheep that Grandboy. You are not serving my ends right now, Grandboy. You'll see this in ministry, and the sheep that struggle, that sin a lot, that are trying to get their life in order by the grace of God, get tossed aside in a church with a pastor who all he cares about is power. Because you're just work. Get out of my way. We're trying to do things here. So that's a big tendency for ministers as well. You want to say something?
Oh, I just want to say the power and control really go hand in hand.
Yes, very much so.
Especially as a mother, as the main disciplinary in my house, unsaved, raising 3 children from a very young age.
Yeah.
A lot of, like you said, why are you disciplining your children? A lot of my discipline was because I wanted my children to be respectful adults.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality was they got disciplined because they broke my rules.
Mm-hmm.
And these are my rules, and you broke my rules. And when I read Shepherding the Child's Heart,
oh, such a good book.
I cried through every chapter. Because that is not how I raise my children. But just touching on what you said about my expectations of my children. I told you not to jump on the couch yesterday. Why do I have to tell you again today? Not to jump on the couch.
Yeah,
kind of
right.
thing,
Yep.
And I just haven't had to mature enough and be reminded enough that they're children. And they learn so much every single day. And it's okay if I have to tell them every other day to say please and thank you and yes ma'am and no ma'am and yes sir and no sir and don't jump on the couch today even though I told you yesterday, because they wake up with a whole new brain that's soaking up so much stuff that the end result is when they leave my house, they've been told enough that they know how to act. And even though I have to remind them at home, because at home is where they display their worst behavior because they know they have unconditional love.
Yeah. Right.
And your job is to prepare them to leave the home.
Yeah.
And
Right.
when they leave the home, that stays with them.
Right.
I mean, I would say he's pretty respectable. But, the truth is I raise my children with control of I have these rules and you follow my rules or you get disciplined.
Yeah.
And I watch them raise their children in this is what God says. This is how we glorify God, and this is how we discipline. It's a whole new world to me, considering what I came from and how I raise my children.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. Guys, if that book she just talked about, it's one of the best parenting books ever written. You should get it. Shepherding a Child's Heart. It's an amazing book. Because the tendency with power is to just say, fall in line with my rules. If you are a husband towards your wife, or you are parents towards your children, are they seeing you in your rebukes towards them? Are they seeing you supremely affectionate for the glory of God? Or are they seeing you saying, you're in my way. You're in my way. You didn't make me happy. I'm tired and you're frustrating me. We need to be able to rebuke our spouses, and we need to be able to rebuke our children in a way where they say, my parents, my husband, my wife, they care so much about the glory of God. And that's what they just want me to enjoy that life as well. That's a very different thing when you're over here drinking of the fountain of Christ and being satisfied, and somebody's drinking over here. It's a very different thing to say, I'm going to discipline you because you need discipline, but it's because I want you to come drink here. This is so good. This is so satisfying. People know that. People know when you're doing that versus you're just in my way. Just get out of my way. So that's our desire. Our desire as parents, our desire as spouses is to pull the affections towards Christ. That's our desire, or it should be our desire. It's often not, but it should be. One of the things that I was taught, it actually might have been in that book. It might have been. But I remember thinking this when we had Millie. Every single time Millie sins, I say, who did you sin against? And she says God first. Every time. Because I don't want her thinking I just sinned against dad or mom or my sister or my brother. No, you sinned against God first. And you have to apologize to God first. And she does that. Before every sin that she commits and she's in trouble for, who did you sin against? God. And then I say, so what do you say? And she says, God, please forgive me for whatever it was. And I make her identify the sin, not just I was bad. No, you are going to tell God how you rebelled against him. I was angry. I disobeyed my father and mother. I was angry and hit my sister. Whatever it is, identify that sin, ask for forgiveness. And then it's, okay, now to daddy, and then to the sibling or whatever the order is. Because my hope is that she's seeing, one, she's responsible and accountable to God, not just dad. That's ultimate. But then my desire is for one day for her to hate her sin and want to obey God. Not just, I hate my sin because it messes me up with dad, and I just want to make sure dad is happy. My goal as father is to point her to the ultimate father, right? To say, you need to love him, and you need to want to obey him. So, and you're coming next, bud. You're coming next. So, anything else? Yeah.
That's where it was like dominance and being more chauvinistic was more of an issue of an idol of the power. But I think the encouragement too is that the Lord is gracious to really allow us to experience humiliation. And part of that maturing of the trials and things that come to take away that power over and over and over to remind us, and then to the point where you get less humiliated when you lose the power. But yeah, I think that he's very gracious to allow a lot to happen in that realm to remove the power and remind you and to redirect you back to him as ultimately all powerful.
Yeah, that's really good.
And I think that softens men. I think men who grow in maturity in Christ tend to still not, be passive. It's a big distinction, not passive, but to become more tender.
Yeah, right.
And to become more patient.
Right.
And, to be less keen about having dominant.
That's right.
That dominion mandate has to get done, and more like, okay, I trust the Lord with him enabling me to fulfill that.
Yeah, that's really good, Frank. Yeah. That's really good.
But he might allow you to be humiliated.
A bit, and I think because he's a jealous God, right? Like we talked about.
I'm sure with all these fears, right? Like he allows those fears to become real, so that the shock factor becomes less, of a shock factor. But I think for that part, the humiliation part,
absolutely,
is actually a gift from the Lord.
That's right.
To not overestimate your ability.
Yeah.
To where then you're self-deceived.
That's right. And self-reliant, yeah,
Right.
for sure. Guys, in our culture, last thing on power, in our culture, who is valued in our culture to have power, men or women? Who do we value? Say, oh, this is a valuable thing. You should value this as well. Who do we say who should be in power? Women. And who do we say should not have power? Men. So there's a tendency. Here's why I don't think necessarily, knowing the people in the room pretty well, I don't think that we're on the side of being tempted to do that. Maybe we are. I think what our temptation is going to be is to like swing super hard the other way. And to say, well, I'm not going to be like those sissy men out there, and I'm going to have power in my home. That is going to be a real, genuine temptation. So be careful. Or other way around, for women, you might look out there and say, I'm not supposed to have any power. What we looked at in 1 Peter in the last lesson is you are actually supposed to have tons of power in your home. But power as God defines and in the way God defined it. It's through a gentle, meek, submissive, quiet in spirit, pure conduct. That's where your power in the home comes from. So I think we're probably going to have a tendency here is like men are going to be tyrannical and women are probably just going to be like, I don't want to do anything. That's right. That's what a homemaker is, right? We just kind of don't have any power. We just sit around. Like, no. There's power to be had. You want to say something? I could see it in your face.
The flip side of that coin, power being hidden behind masculinity. And I think you're seeing that now.
Yep.
In the Twitter sphere.
Oh man.
With the hard swing to the right, any attack on my power, you're just embracing some feminist ideology.
Yeah.
Like you're a leftist, you're brainwashed by the complementary movement, and that's why you're coming after my power.
Yeah.
I think unfortunately we're about to see a lot of young, my age pastors are gonna get burned.
Yeah, they're gonna put the pedal to the metal on that, and it's gonna be dangerous. So,
thank you for listening. If you would like to know more, you can visit our website at www.shastareformedchurch.com.